Hello, everybody. Welcome to AI Amateurs, episode 12. Michelle, how you doing?
Doing pretty awesome. As the weather is like nice and hot, and before winter, so it's like a false summer.
It is. The weather is getting, yeah, exactly. Fall summer. Robert, how are you doing?
Real well. Got my FSD driving me all around Silicon Valley today, helping a friend move.
Nice. Robert is joining AI Amateurs with FSD driving him around. Very fitting. Omar, how
Well,
you
I'm
doing?
I'm sitting down now, but
All right. Omar, how you?
Doing great. Just got a Cybertruck FSD update, so excited to try that out in a bit.
We are resisting the urge to talk about Tesla, as always. Uzi, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's the first time I've heard your music in a space. And I've been in one of your spaces maybe every day for like 6 months. So we're off to a banger.
Yeah, that music plays every single time, but the experience, UI experience, user experience on X, on app, on desktop, speakers, hosts, listeners is just completely different from each other. It's the buggiest. Yeah, I mean, don't get me started. Chris, how you doing?
Excellent. Enjoyed your Tesla space this morning. It was interesting info.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it's actually that episode's doing really well. Maybe because of earnings week. Anyway, Michelle, what is the AI news of the week?
Which one?
You pick. Which one's the biggest one?
I mean, this fast one we can maybe toss away when we're done was OpenAI related crypto endeavor linked to UBI Worldcoin thing was announced. And like, I'm not a crypto fan at all, and so we would need other people for that. But my understanding is that the TLDR is that it's putting the foundations for a world where there are lots of AI agents, and you would need some form of proof that you're a biological human in human to human interactions or human to businesses interactions.
And the interesting aspect of the orb in this connection, which I thought was curious.
Uzi.
Yeah, the orb's interesting. I think it just scans is it your retina. Part of our conversation last week centered around AGI job displacement. So as a result of that, we were thinking, oh, would UBI be part of the conversation? So Altman is trying to think maybe 5 to 10 years in the future with WorldCoin here, just as Michelle explained.
Okay, so Michelle, to summarize, OpenAI announced WorldCoin, a way to verify that you're human. Michelle, when is this going to be implemented?
Well, their announcement was that the framework is now somehow functional, so it's open for developers and some sort of marketplace for apps that are linked into this system for people to develop those apps. So we're at the very early phase where developers are given public access.
Okay, we're going to go to Omar in a second. But before that, if you're enjoying this space every week, please head up to the top of your screens through the link at the top, go to YouTube and like the YouTube video. We're trying to exceed 100 likes in this episode. We are already at 15. And with your help, we're going to get there today. Trying to grow AI amateurs. We need to get to a few hundred likes, just like Tesla Live, for it to be financially sustainable. Omar, what is this WorldCoin thing by OpenAI? Can you explain it to us?
Well, WorldCoin has been, I think, around for a number of years. I don't think it's actually part of OpenAI. I think it's a separate Sam Altman project. So I actually have a WorldCoin account. I got it several years ago. I was in San Francisco. They said, come scan your eyeball and we'll give you a WorldCoin account. And I let Sam Altman scan my eyeballs, and I got the app, and I haven't used it since. So it's a little bit of a flop, in my opinion. Maybe someday in the future it's useful for something, but I literally have never heard of anybody using it for anything.
Robert, do you agree? Do you think this is a flop?
It's multi-factor authentication in a product. I don't know why people need it yet. And there's other systems to come along that will provide that for us. I'm with Omar. It's hard to get excited about it so far.
Chris,
I have this feeling that Sam might, or OpenAI might be utilizing this WorldCoin method as the small transactional base for agents. And that is the payment method that one would be using. And if that's accurate, then that would be a very interesting approach.
well, let me ask, do you guys think this is a competitor? Is this a competitor Bitcoin?
It's different. It's not trying to be Bitcoin exactly. So the idea is, okay, how do we know in an AGI world who's a human and who isn't, right? Because as we have these intelligent agents that are able to give output that's more and more human like, how do you tell if somebody's actually a human? Let's say you want to give a $200 gift card to everybody affected by the hurricane. How do you tell the real people who need help from AI agents that are just trying to scam you, right? So you need some way to do it. So they're saying, okay, let's scan their eyes and sort of, now we can kind of prove they're a human to make their account. And then the other aspect of it, which he's been thinking about, is universal basic income. So if AI is doing all the jobs, then some people have thought about universal basic income. How do we do that? And if you've got people who have a account and they verify that they're human, then you can use that to maybe give them some UBI. It's all kind of very forward thinking as opposed to addressing a problem that exists today.
Uzi.
Yeah, I should mention the Wall Street Journal did a cover in August, and they explained that authorities in Hong Kong raided a WorldCoin, I guess, base. It was blocked in Spain, fined in Argentina, and banned in Kenya. So Hong Kong banned WorldCoin for retaining iris images for up to a decade, as they allege. So I guess there's some privacy concerns. I do think distinguishing crypto coins, the value of it, distinguishing the value of crypto coins drives the narrative story, which is what makes them have value, as you see with like a Bitcoin. The human verification story is what Sam's aiming for here. I don't really find it as a good investment at this point.
Okay, any other comments, questions on WorldCoin? Please request to speak. Matt Senko on YouTube live chat says crypto is a bridge. It's to facilitate an economy between AI and humans that AI cannot hack. Okay. We have other things to talk about. Any other comments? So Omar, you're saying this is a nothing burger at this time.
For now,
Sorry.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of forward thinking, but I do agree with the idea that AI won't use the traditional banking system because like AI has no concept of a business day. It's running all the time. It doesn't want to wait 3 days for something to get done. I think an entirely cryptographic form of exchange where the AI can just execute the cryptographic functions itself and sign the transaction is probably actually how AI agents will transact with each other.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I got one more thing to add there, and that is just that it seems to me this might be similar to the petrodollar. In other words, currencies being converted, be it Bitcoin or whatever it might be, into a kind of quote unquote credit system, like credits that can be used or distributed. So that's the way I look at it.
Okay. If there are no comments on WorldCoin, we're going to switch to XAI API. XAI is rolling out their API service. Omar, would you like to give us a introduction to this discussion? Let's talk about for about 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah, so an API, for those who aren't familiar, is kind of like a website or service that another computer can use. So you can use the Grok website or the Grok UI here on X to ask Grok, but what if you want, let's say DoorDash or Uber or another app to be able to have a Grok chat in their app? That's what the API allows you to do. So for OpenAI, the API is estimated to be a $500 million a year business today. So they're doing millions of dollars of revenue off this thing. And essentially what it allows you to do is just, send text and get Grok to respond, or images or video or whatever. So it's an exciting step for XAI, and it means you'll be able to see Grok in more places. And, in those apps that let you talk to any chat bot or compare them, they'll now be able to use the XAI API as well. So, I mean, some people were asking in the town halls this weekend, they were saying, hey, we want OpenAI sort of LLM API, but that's not so woke. That's not refusing to do things that we wanted to do. And here's Grok now. It's available.
Michelle.
I mean, that was very well explained, but the important aspect is that APIs are typically billed per token, like per use. So you pay a fraction of a cent per like syllable. So it's a new revenue stream. The same way you can subscribe for ChatGPT as an individual for $20 a month, but like when you program something that's going to interact with the API, you get charged by like some tiny amounts of money for input tokens and a certain amount of money for output tokens. So it's a new revenue stream that when a business to business transaction is made, it's a small amount of money, but at scale it becomes a significant portion of your revenue.
How is XAI API different from OpenAI's API?
One connects to Grok and one connects to GPT-4o. Other than that, they're pretty much exactly the same.
Okay. Got it. Michelle, anything on your end?
Well, exactly. Technologically, it's the same model of interaction, but the model you're interacting with is different. I mean, Grok is lit and is not woke. Definitely, like there's an annoying part of like transcribing a meeting that casually mentioned something political, and then Copilot or OpenAI refusing to transcribe the meeting because it contains something political. And I was like, no, please just do your job. I don't want your opinion. But like it's sometimes you trip the safety layer and you're just trying to do business stuff. Maybe Grok API would avoid those annoyances.
Thank you. Yoda.
Yeah, right now I think Grok is offering text and also image generation, whereas OpenAI has like voice with their advanced voice model right now, for example. So they're a little bit different depending on what apps you want to build on top of them.
Uzi. Thank you, Yoda.
Yeah, I think Omar hit on the different data source, and I want to highlight that because X is a news platform first, it covers a diversity of perspectives. So if you're looking to make an API for like sports and gather a range of perspectives on one particular topic, that's what seems to be the best use case in my perspective.
Yeah, that's a great point. Adding a real-time LLM is something OpenAI didn't have.
All right. Anything else on XAI API? Any other questions, comments?
I have one for Omar. Can you hook it up to lists at all? Because if you could, then you could build a system to watch a specific list of people here on X and tell you things about what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely, you could.
So is XAI API going to it's going to accelerate XAI's revenues, right? Profitable to maybe. And will it reduce the probability that Elon has to sell Tesla shares, to keep XAI afloat?
I mean, XAI doesn't have any problems fundraising. They just raised $6 billion. They'll probably raise again. I don't even think he's going to need help fundraising for X because X then owns 25% of XAI. So XAI is the magic that turns X, that saves X. I don't think he's going to be selling any Tesla shares. He recently said they're pretty much break even. So I don't think they have sort of massive losses. Yes, revenue is down, but they also cut expenses massively, right? So they're not doing too bad. I think the XAI sort of forming a new corporation, giving it access to X's data, and then creating an equity appreciation there that you can use to hire great engineers, etc. This was a pretty smart way to try and work around the structure of the Twitter acquisition, the debt that X has, and I think they're going to do very well. I could see this company being worth, north of even more valuable than X actually.
Interesting. Yoda?
Yeah, I think this is an important milestone for XAI because this is a start for them to create a developer ecosystem. And of course, when developers start to develop on top of your platform, and if some of those applications becomes, used, there's then switching costs for them to then use other models. So essentially, XAI, if the API release grows in traction, becomes successful, it makes XAI a lot more valuable. This is again why we need, as Tesla investors, need to take a stake in XAI as soon as possible, because part of the valuation unlock for XAI is, for example, when they reach 10,000 developers, 100,000 developers, etc.
Okay, we have a new speaker on the board. DMV, XAI, X Tesla. Go ahead.
What do you think about XAI or X coming out with like their own laptop or something like that?
Omar, do you think XAI is going to come out with its own hardware?
I don't see any reason why they would do that.
Anybody on the board disagree?
I think there's a distinct possibility that they may very well come up with a phone that links in with the SpaceX stuff, given all these new things. But this is just a desire of mine, maybe more.
XAI is going to come up with the SpaceX phone. I mean, someone literally asked Elon if he was going to make a phone, and he said, thinking about making a phone makes me want to die or something like that. Like, Elon's not trying to get into a super competitive existing business like the phone business and try and compete with Apple. He wants to come up with the thing that kills Apple, like a brain computer interface or something. That's what he's really good at doing. You know, People who want him to do a phone are just thinking kind of, I think, inside the box. There's so many phone makers and they just spend so much focusing on this. Trying to figure out how to create the best phone is something I don't think they necessarily want to waste engineering resources on, and I'm not sure there would really be a benefit.
Yeah, I agree.
Michelle?
Thanks.
So I know we're trying to avoid talking about Tesla on this show, but like the Grok API would exactly be the kind of thing your Tesla would interact with infrastructure wise. Like if your Tesla has Grok, it would be through the API. So that's the kind of business interface we're talking about.
Michelle, when do you think Teslas will get Grok? It's not anytime soon, right?
No, I mean, it would be more natural if Grok gets to a point where OpenAI is at now, where there's a voice-to-voice API that skips the
Right.
transcription entirely and does voice a little bit more fluently and instantly.
Okay. Yoda, then Robert.
Yeah, right now I'm just in the API as a developer, and I just to share that the cost is $5 per million tokens for input tokens text, and then for output tokens, $15 per million tokens. So more expensive than OpenAI at this point.
I would be looking at for timing for Grok in Teslas. When do they turn on the voice API? Right, we don't have a way to talk to Grok with our voice yet. When are they going to turn on multimodal? We don't have a way to send a photo to it yet. And I would expect all of those in the next quarter or two. That's why they're turning on these 100,000 Nvidia cards so that they can build a lot of different kinds of models to build an orchestra of models that would be the set that goes into a Tesla or running more accurately running on the cloud, but interacting with your Tesla.
Thank you. Omar, why do you think XAI API is more expensive at this time than OpenAI API? Is it just scale?
Yeah, I mean, probably OpenAI is pricing it at a level where they're expected to lose $14 billion next year. They want to build out their infrastructure. Um, they need to price it at a level where they can support that level of traffic. So let's say they cut the OpenAI pricing by half. A lot of people would move, their infrastructure would get overwhelmed. So I think it's kind of balancing supply and demand. Long term, given these guys focused on cost and efficiency and running their own infrastructure, I expect them to build out the infrastructure and probably get the price down below the per token cost of OpenAI.
All right. Any other questions, comments on XAI API? Please request to speak or raise your hand. Earlier, we talked about OpenAI's Worldcoin. We're now talking about XAI API. Thank you to those who smashed that like button on YouTube channel. We are now up to 3 dozen viewers on YouTube and 3 dozen likes on the YouTube channel on this video. There's a direct correlation between likes and how many people the algorithm pushes the video out to. So take a moment to smash that like button. We're trying to get to 100 likes this episode. Chris, then Yoda.
Just to note that the Grok beta is going to be approximately $5 per million input tokens, which is around 750,000 words, and $15 per million output tokens.
Thank you, Yoda.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to give everyone the OpenAI pricing. So OpenAI is $2.50 per million input tokens, so basically half the cost. And on the output, it's $10 per million output tokens versus $15 from XAI.
Okay, great. Michelle, what's next on our agenda? You want to talk about Microsoft?
Well, yes, it's frustrating that it's just like I'm subscribed to Copilot's X account, to Microsoft X account, and then out of nowhere, Satya Nadella is tweeting a blog about them releasing autonomous agents. So, like, yeah, I almost missed it. But yes, Microsoft is talking about their autonomous agents. So some sort of like we know ChatGPT has these like GPTs, but Copilot used to have those, and they kind of pulled out a few months ago, and now it's their comeback with those agents that plugs into your corporate data and autonomously, let's say, it optimizes your deliver your logistics or your CRM, for example. So it's a stab at Salesforce. It's a stab at a bunch of other logistics intelligence companies, but provided that it's a product entirely made by and delivered by Microsoft directly.
Okay. So Microsoft is rolling out autonomous agents that will compete with Salesforce's and other companies' autonomous agents. So, Michelle, what will these autonomous agents by Microsoft do? What functions are they taking on?
It's something you would be you had your eyes on for a while now, and it's actually gonna replace people's jobs. Because when you say it's a stab at other companies' autonomous agents, that's not precisely correct, because it's the first time we have these AI-powered autonomous agents, but it's aimed at replacing people using legacy tools that are making those jobs. And maybe like imagine a huge company like Costco has like a department of logistics to have everything come in at the right time, and the warehouse is not overwhelmed with product and stuck with lots of stale products that are not moving, or they don't balance it out with like products being out of stock. Everything has to be just in time in that business, and it takes a lot of people to monitor everything, and they do that with the help of advanced software. Business intelligence software is nothing new, and not everything has to be AI to be like intelligent and smart, but this is doing the job of like several people with maybe a fewer people supervising those agents,
Okay.
and they're able to do more.
So Microsoft's open autonomous agents and Salesforce will replace human jobs in the first. They're not necessarily competing with each other. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. It's a little bit
Okay.
like there was a lot of
So will
startups
I
that
be able
used.
to talk to this autonomous agent and say, create a PowerPoint presentation for me for this meeting?
Well, you can already do that with Copilot. They sell it $65 a month, which is kind of
Okay,
expensive, though.
so what will this autonomous agent do that the current Copilot cannot do? That's what I'm trying to understand.
At a larger organizational scale, where it would be beyond what a single Copilot would be able to do to manage the logistics of Costco. Like to manage the logistics of a flower shop, Copilot can probably keep up, but a national brand, we're talking at a much larger scale.
Okay. Sean?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how these different versions of machine learning and AI models work and function together, because I think that they probably will kind of serve unique purposes and have their specialties and abilities for like their use cases, in my opinion.
Uzi, someone in the reply said Palantir already has autonomous agents. What do they mean by that?
Yeah, well, I don't know if they're necessarily like autonomous. It seems like they're prompting a lot of the agents. Chad was actually in this call, but yeah, this is exactly what Palantir does. I think Palantir is probably the best example that I've seen so far. Um, I would say a lot of what the blog article I was just reading it focuses on is what Palantir excels at, which is supply chain management. And we did talk about customer service with AI, so curious to see how that would work.
Okay, let's dig into that a little bit. So, Michelle, Uzi says Palantir has autonomous agents that are better at supply management than Microsoft's new autonomous agents. Do you agree with that?
Probably, I've not experienced the specific products, but the fact that they've been doing this a little bit longer, that means it's probably true.
Uzi, what makes Palantir's autonomous agents better at supply chain management?
Well, they're using Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini, so you have a diversity. Then the like having ontology, because oh god, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. But ontology sort of is the nouns and verbs of your business. That's how they frame it. So any action you could take would be a verb within your business context, and then I guess nouns would be more of, I guess, what's within the business that could be acted upon. So having that framework sort of gives the AI agent a context to operate within.
Rich?
It's another way to kind of frame how Microsoft's autonomous agents are. There's a lot of companies. I deal with some healthcare companies that they're very ingrained with Microsoft. So they use Teams, they use project management tools, their CRMs, and their co-pilots previously were kind of departments. You could think of it departments for creating co-pilots to automate a task that they were doing. Now autonomous agents is kind of how to move data from one team to the next team. If it's a repetitive kind of process, you have a meeting, you've got notes from the meeting that go into your email, and then you could kind of create this string of actions that move across different Microsoft services that they have set up within their organization. And it's giving the power to teams to be able to build those autonomous agents themselves. So Satya has been talking a lot about like this newer versions, the better UI that is going to make it easier for people to build these agents.
Robert, can you put all this in English?
Yesterday, I put up a video of a guy out of Vietnam who built a whole development system with his team. The agents go off and look at the internet, read all sorts of reviews, take inbound emails or feature requests that are coming into emails, figures out that a new feature is needed because of all this gathering, creates the free feature, checks it in, QA controls it, looks for bugs, makes sure it all works, and then can check it into production and push it out to the website, all without much human contact right now, if any at all. And that's sort of the pattern of like the Salesforce and the other companies. There's going to be a lot of these. I just reshared a whole bunch of agent stuff. Agents are coming out of the woodwork to do new kinds of automation systems for us, or
So
new kinds
Robert,
of
are you
research.
are
Hard
you
to.
buying Microsoft and Salesforce stocks based on this?
I hold both, so I've bought them. I don't think I don't know that I'm going to buy more. I have too much tech, mostly because I have a lot of Tesla, which might pisses off my money manager.
Is anyone on the speaker board changing their investment portfolio based on this news that Microsoft is coming out with autonomous agents? Michelle?
Not significantly, but if I see companies that were reluctant in jumping in the like using AI both, uh, jumping and using those tools because they might be reluctant to use like Claude. Who are those Anthropic guys? We've worked with Microsoft for decades. So I want to echo what somebody else said here, where if a business wants to use trusted partners, they're gonna go with that kind of solution provided by Microsoft because they trust them and they've been doing business with them for a long time. So I'm gonna be more looking at maybe opportunities if they publish who are the businesses that are going to be their clients for that product.
And Uzi, I saw a thumbs up from you when I asked, is anyone changing their investments? How are you changing your investments?
Well, if you remember, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was telling you I was going to sell Amazon, and so with that, I bought Microsoft with the philosophy. Thanks for laughing, Sean. I'm just kidding, but with the general philosophy that the larger the install base, the better off the company will be in a AI world. There are two companies that fill that criteria. One is Google Docs, Gmail. The other is Microsoft, basically like the evil twin of Google. Actually, I like Microsoft much more than Google, though. So, having these AI agents within an organization that can, operate within spreadsheets or, within a business context, I think that a lot of the, Dan Ives rhetoric is centered around Apple and the, next upgrade cycle. I think some of that will come to Copilot, and I'm hoping that these autonomous agents will, fulfill their service. But I've doubled the amount of Palantir, and I have tripled the amount of Tesla than Microsoft.
Sean, you're very expressive with the emojis. Would you like to maybe speak a little bit too?
Yeah, I guess just to kind of give kind of an overview perspective on the state of AI, I guess we could say. I think that Google and Microsoft, you can easily consider those more business class. They already have partners that they're working with, as Uzi was saying, and these are already established. They already perhaps have Windows operating machines there, so then it becomes an easy tool for people to access within their workflow to then get things done. But then I think you start to look at the other ones like OpenAI and now XAI and how it's integrated here in Grok. And we could use Grok right now, but then what's to come, though, I think is what's going to be the interesting part, because I think that the strength of the tool, if we look at how Tesla AI has done things, and then how the SpaceX Starship program and Falcon 9 program have done things, you see how the rate of innovation grows and how powerful these tools can get, especially when they start working together for common goals.
Sorry, did you basically just say SpaceX has been using autonomous agents?
Well, I'm just saying the rate of innovation is what I'm pointing at right here.
Okay, so because of autonomous agents, rates of innovation will go up for these companies. Okay, which company do you think will benefit the most?
That's a hard one to say. I think it's just a benefit to everybody to use these tools more, because then it allows more output. I definitely think that with Tesla, it's going to be a major beneficiary, that it is one of the sister companies, and then I think that will bring a lot to the robotaxi network.
Uzi, do you agree?
I didn't get to catch everything that he mentioned.
Okay. Michelle, do you agree with Sean?
Vaguely. I wanted to close this autonomous agent
Hold on,
subject that
hold on 1 second. Can you summarize what Sean said?
using AI makes your company accelerate faster. If anybody that uses it, like I mentioned before, is somebody to look at closely.
I don't know. Doesn't seem like a very original idea. All right. Uzi?
Yeah, I just want to point out, for the most part, companies that are using AI are just going to save costs. You probably want to spend more investment on the CapEx receivers and the CapEx spenders. So that's really, like, right now, the Nvidias of the world. Maybe tomorrow, that's the Microsofts of the world.
Michelle.
It's at the end of the article, if anybody makes it all the way down. Microsoft says they used it themselves, and they achieved 9% higher revenue on the teams that used their tool, closed 20% more deals, and on the customer service front, they were able to close their customer service requests 21% faster. So they've been using it internally when it's a matter of like selling Azure or cloud services to their customers, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Michelle, I believe you said earlier that these autonomous agents will replace humans first. Which company do you think will lead layoffs?
Being the scapegoat for like being publicly pointed at for laying off people because you're using AI is a PR nightmare. Absolutely no one will do that. It's a very not agile company with PR would be somebody that would do that. The companies will most likely grow with the people that they have, but a 30 person team is going to be able to do way more. And maybe if there are people that are retiring or moving on or being poached, you'll get these zombie positions where they put a job posting for a job that they're not really going to hire for.
Why is announcing that you're laying people off and replacing with AI a PR nightmare? Not that I mean I don't disagree with you, but I would like you to maybe elaborate on that a little bit more.
Absolutely every journalist I talked with, including you, because you're kind of media somehow with your show and everything, are asking every other nerds like me that question. And because they want somebody to point at and say, look, these evil corporations are laying off people and replacing them with AI. It's like the story, it's already written and there's just like a little space in their article for the company name. They already have their draft ready.
Okay. Well, I don't have a draft ready. I'm just curious. Uzi?
Yeah, fear sells really well. So if I'm a journalist and I want clicks, inciting rage or fear, which are different feeling emotions, those tend to get that. And an outrageous headline like "your job might be replaced," your sense of security is going to be removed, that will get a click.
Okay, so let's say, for example, company A has 10,000 employees, and now they have access to autonomous agents that can do jobs of a few thousand, so half of them. You're telling me that this company A is not going to lay people off, so 5,000 people will just kind of sit around and do nothing, like Google engineers?
Yes. Well,
Chris?
I mean, just looking at this here, I just pulled up these stats by the largest call centers that exist within the US. Blue Cross Blue Shield, 40,000 call center employees. Wells Fargo, 40,000. Verizon, 40,000. Citigroup, 29,000. At least 50% of these people are going away. And it just continues, in terms of agents, like it's all those little steps where everybody's always transferring you to the next spot to generally just get a very rudimentary thing accomplished. Probably just the end loop of it is going to be a human when something can't be accomplished. So, call centers, education, all these aspects are really going to be impacted.
Michelle, we talked, Chris brought up call centers. We've spoken in previous spaces about, call centers being the front line of how these AIs can be replacing humans. But we haven't yet seen. Have you seen any layoff announcements from call centers?
it might be more discreet when these big businesses are using subcontractors for their call centers. So the contract might be even kind of long term, like on several years. And when the renewal of those contracts are going to be coming up, then they might drastically scale down those contracts. And then like this 1 2 3 4 company nobody knows the name of that does the call centers for a portion of this big telco or this big bank, well, it's going to be reported on the news like they cut these employees, but the headcount at the bank is not really going to change. It all depends, but it will start to happen at some point, and they're gonna try to do it extremely discreetly.
I mean, everybody agrees it's going to start to happen at some point. But what I'm trying to get at is when. So, up to this point, do you agree, Michelle, that a lot of this is just headlines? It hasn't had much impact on the real economy. at least the employment market. Do you agree with that?
I mean, translators were not a noticeable part of the economy, but call center are going to be. It had not have an impact on the economy, substantial impact yet, for now.
Kate Blee in reply says layoffs at call centers, and she laughs. She says the amount of churn, they just have to stop hiring.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I can speak to at least like smaller businesses like e-commerce. I'm in the e-commerce industry, and there are products that offer customer service agents to people, and that's kind of there's like two routes. No one really does mass layoffs for the agents because the churn is so high, and it's mostly kind of like first time workers or like people out of college. Like they just stop hiring as people leave. Yeah, that's usually how it works.
Fran,
Hi, I used to work for a call center for a major bank in the US, and I was laid off. But that was due to I spent 2 months training, and then I spent complicated calls with customers for a long while, and they decided to lay off because of training. They wanted to save money on training and staff, and because they were a global bank. So yeah, I have experienced that myself. But I worked in customer service for over 10 years, and I find that people do want to talk to people rather than robots. By the time they go through the robots, they're really agitated and angry, and they just want to get things sorted out and completed.
okay. Any other questions, comments? Wave.
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit of effects as soon as we had voice to text recognition or voice recognition automation has had a major impact on the amount of customer agents that are at least level 1, 2, and 3 that are hired. So this train has already left the station, and it's only going to accelerate more.
Okay, well, Wave, how do you explain no uptick, essentially no uptick in layoffs across the economy?
That assumes you're able to actually, if you just measure the subgroup that you're looking for, then it's an aggregate number. There's ups and downs. There's I don't trust the data, first of all, and unless you can run a control sample on a control industry and measure it over a 3-month period, then I'll have some trust in the data. There's definitely been significant deceleration, and a lot of the customer support is outside the United States, which is not inside of our numbers.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on Microsoft's autonomous agents? Michelle, anything else we're going to hit on this topic? And then Robert.
I mean, it's really for the businesses that already have their data in Power BI, business intelligence product. And if you don't know what Power BI is, well, maybe look at competitors like Palantir that can help you get your data in a structured way better. But if you're already in bed with Microsoft through the nose, that's something you should look at.
I think it's way too early for agents to have an effect on employment right now. We can predict, in a year after companies have, used them, built them, and seen that they work versus a human, then I think you're going to see an effect. But it's way too early for agents, at least, to have an effect. But for the listener of this of this show, we should start thinking about how to become more agentic, how to think about delegating tasks to agents. And I've been talking to a lot of entrepreneurs about that. They treat them like consultants or interns or even a junior software developer now. And they're changing and improving at a pretty fast rate. They're sort of like FSD on Tesla, where you can see an improvement over time. Same thing is going on here. So start learning.
Okay. We're going to switch gears in a second. Before that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We're halfway in the space. We're also halfway in our goal to 100 likes for this episode. As I read the sponsor ads, please go up to the top of our screens, click into YouTube channel, and give us a like. That really helps us grow the channel. Really, really important. So we have three sponsors. One, Tesla Live is proudly, AI Amateurs is proudly sponsored by Paymore, your trusted destination for buying, selling, trading, and recycling electronics. Join the Paymore revolution today, where you can buy the latest gadgets at great prices, sell or trade your used electronics for cash or store credit, or recycle old or broken devices responsibly, helping reduce electronic waste. Visit them online at paymore.com. And AI Amateurs is also proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. At Joa, you'll find innovative charging solutions, stylish interior upgrades, protective gear, and cutting-edge tech add-ons. And you can get an exclusive discount if you use TSLA Live at checkout. Thank you, Joa and Paymore, for supporting AI Amateurs. And Robert, our third sponsor, requests your favorite Elon Musk quote. Robert, what's your favorite Elon Musk quote?
If the human can see it, the car can see it.
There you go. That's great. Thank you, Robert.
I like the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. Seems true.
All right. Okay. Let's go to Wave, who had his hand up. Wave?
Actually, still talking about the last subject, I think companies like McKinsey will be really instrumental with larger companies to go in and help them, be it with Microsoft AI or agents or others, just because this is something that's very difficult to do internally. You need to bring an external source in, because internally the people that you're trying to automate are not going to help you unless you can structure a job guarantee for them or another position that they're going to go into. Then they'll be willing to help you with the agent development and deployment for their teams.
Thank you, Wave. Uzi?
I think with like a McKinsey or an Accenture, maybe like the first 5 years, they'll be extremely helpful in integrating AI. But then at a certain point, once the business is largely autonomous and you already have an LLM, which is basically a consultant, well, what's the point of outsourcing to McKinsey? And this was one of the arguments I made last week, which was we're one of the first companies that are, I guess, notable to go down.
Wave disagrees with you. Wave?
I think it's a matter of timing. I agree that they won't need them after a few years, but there's a lot of companies that there's it's such a target-rich environment. I think it's going to be a decade before a lot of companies even adopt it. Even look at right now, what percentage of population are using AI in a real-time basis, on a daily basis, personally or in their business. It's very, very small.
Yeah, I think we have half the requests OpenAI gets on a daily basis on our speaker board right now. Michelle, I think, comprises 30% of ChatGPT's requests, prompts.
I've seen my API bill from last month, and it's scary.
Is it half of OpenAI's revenue? I mean, Wave, on the other hand, I've actually seen people go from not knowing anything about ChatGPT to using it on a daily basis and then subscribing to it in a matter of a couple of weeks. So things can change real quickly.
I agree, but I think we typically are surrounded and talk in our own tribes or people that in our network. So I think that's really biased.
No, this is not in our network. This is I'm basing this on anecdotal evidence outside of AI amateurs or Tesla Live or even X. Like these are people that I know in my personal life. As I explain to them, especially, hey, I use it for this. It doesn't take much for them to go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, so to speak. Okay. But we'll see, you know. We'll see. I mean, how many of you, Uzi, have you introduced anyone to these chatbots in your personal life?
I mean, I'm pretty young, so everyone I know is kind of using it.
Are they using it mostly to write essays for schoolwork?
Yes, or any coding.
Yeah. Wave?
I think maybe the age group has a lot to do with it. The people that I have introduced different tools to are 30 or 40 and above, and the penetration has been nowhere as good as your experience.
Maybe your commission skills just suck.
Could be. I don't. If there's not a customer pull, I don't push.
Yeah. Well, bring them to AI amateurs. That'll change. Michelle?
I had a refreshing recent conversion to the paid version of ChatGPT with friend of my girlfriend, who's a social worker, and she has these extremely heavy cases of family issues that she's concealing for, and she doesn't want to upload all of that to her husband or talking to a therapist about this is expensive, but offloading all of it to the ChatGPT voice and then having it response, summarize, and then maybe like tic tac with her a little bit, a few hours after work. She told me it helped tremendously, and it even like challenged her point of view on things. And it's all like difficult to put specific example because of the extremely like delicate and private nature of it. But she did sign up then for the $25 a month team things, even if she's the only member of her team, to have like the extra assurances that this is all super private and not used for training, because like it's children abuse and other like delicate subject. And her only complaint was that the fact that when a delicate subject is addressed, sometimes she has to remember the AI that, oh no, it's like we're just talking about it, we're not like doing it, and it's a wall she hits often. But it's like a different use than like coding and writing
Okay.
essays of AI.
Robert?
My psychiatrist uses a ChatGPT hosted system to take notes on our therapy sessions. She has a component that strips out all personal identifiable information, but she also um, where was I going? Because you brought up a point that I want to make beyond that. I'll think about it. Sorry.
When you hit the like woke limits and it's like, oh,
Oh
we
yeah,
can't talk
yeah.
about this.
It breaks her system because the system will refuse to answer the API call to answer something. She found that you can do a lot of little tricks in a prompt or in a piece of text that you're going to pass over to get it past the church lady, including misspelling names of topics you're talking about, right? Stuff like that.
Okay. Let's switch gears. Uzi, are you following nuclear energy investments that are being announced by big tech companies? Nuclear energy.
I have been. It's fascinating to see the demand.
Why are these companies going nuclear rather than investing in solar and storage?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, I think Michelle may know better on that sense.
Okay, Michelle, Uzi punted the question to you.
Well, I was hovering the raise my hand button, so good call. It's because you would invest in like renewables and then storage to get out of it a base load. But nuclear would provide that base load. And when we're talking about like the fact that training run for a particular model took several weeks or months, that's exactly the kind of base load you would want to rely on. That's not dependent on weather. Even if you have something renewable and then you have storage to like iron out the ups and downs of that renewable, you could still end up in not a drought, but like a drought of wind. I'm at loss for words here. You could have too much clouds for several weeks, or not enough winds for several weeks, and then it impacts your performance. But if you have nuclear and you say, hey, I'm running these training runs that are going to take weeks and months to go through, you have a reliable source of power that you own.
Okay, got it. So you're saying nuclear energy is more reliable than solar and storage, in short. Okay, let's go to Robert.
It's cheaper at scale. If you're have a Tesla has plans for a data center that's 5 million square feet, which is fucking insane. If you've ever been in a data center, I've been in a lot of them that are 300,000 square feet or 500,000 square feet, and those are huge buildings. So that be able to power that so consistently, do you want to have 100,000 batteries trying to store some solar with a huge solar field? Or do you just want a nuclear plant next to your data center? It's price. It's consistency.
Okay, so nuclear is cheaper, quicker to put up. Interesting. I mean, this is very different. Michelle disagrees. Michelle?
Nuclear needs to become cheaper and quicker to install. Right now, it's like the big government projects for large scale reactors, and it takes like 10, 15 years to put on. What these private companies are rooting for are modular, smaller scale nuclear. So when they say smaller scale nuclear, it's smaller than these humongous government run programs, utility scales programs. But it's big power for them, and modular in the fact that you would define some sort of like how to build your IKEA nuclear reactor handbook, and then it's easy to get the permits and get it done following that modularity of putting the reactor together. But that's something they're aiming for, not something that's cheap and quick right now.
Thank you. Wave?
I agree with Michelle, and the cheapest currently is a gas generator for the reliability, 24/7.
Scran?
Until you figure out all the costs of climate change.
Scran?
I just want to say that Google is working with another company to build nuclear reactors for their data centers, and the company is actually using a different way. They're making it more sustainable, so it's a circular, sustainable energy rather than using coal and gas. So that makes it more better for everyone, I suppose. And I think Amazon's doing the same thing as well, but I don't know what company they're using or how they're making it more sustainable. But could we use nuclear with solar in conjunction to make it more sustainable rather than use fossil fuels?
Wave?
To Robert's point, gas is cheaper without identifying the external cost associated with health or environment. So I agree with that portion. The externality is not understood or calculated.
By the way, I have a span panel where I can watch all the electricity coming in my house, and it also shows me where the panel got its energy. This week, it got 23% from
Okay,
solar,
but
10% from wind,
this is
9% from nuclear here in California.
it's a tangent.
Yeah.
So let's say 10 years down the line, Robert, what percent from today to in the next 10 years, what percent of new electricity generation is going to be from nuclear versus solar versus natural gas, in your opinion?
Worldwide or just in the United States?
Just US.
I would say you're already seeing a great increase in solar. Wind is sort of tapping out. Yeah, I don't see a huge amount of new gasoline burning plants being built. Everybody knows those are, not good for the climate, so we shouldn't build anymore. Um, and nuclear seems to have gotten hot because of Bill Gates and others trying to build nuclear plants next to data centers. So, yeah, and I got my gases confused. Natural gas still puts carbon in the air. It comes out of the ground
Okay, but you
here.
didn't answer the question. So what percent is coming from natural gas versus
I
nuclear
don't.
versus solar?
Can you give me what? Can I cheat for a second and go ask ChatGPT what percent
Yeah.
are today? All right.
No, I'm okay. Okay, hold on.
Because I don't.
Sorry, I have to mute everybody. The question is, in the next 10 years, imagine 100 units of total new electricity generation. What portion of that is coming from nuclear, solar, and natural gas? So I'm going to go to Michelle next. Michelle?
Um, a little bit over 30% nuclear in the next 10 years would be a great achievement. And then as much renewable as possible. But all of this AI craze is going to ask for so much power. I'm afraid another 10-30% is going to be natural gas as well.
Michelle, can you give the percentages again? I just really just need the percentages.
I think a 20 to 30% share of both natural gas and nuclear are going to help. In renewable energies are going to be the rest of it.
Okay. Brandon says 50% solar. Does anyone on the board think less than 50% will be solar? Robert?
I did cheat and ask Grok, and it says by 2030, renewables are expected to generate about half of global electricity demand. Renewables are projected to be 95% of global capacity additions through 2030, indicating that solar, wind, and other renewables will constitute a major portion of new power generation. So,
Yeah.
and I don't
I mean,
see any reason to argue with it.
you can ask whatever chatbot you want, whether Grok or ChatGPT or anyone else of the hundreds of chatbots out there. But at the end of the day, you're saying it, so you're responsible for what's being said. Tesla Jess.
Who hallucinated?
Yeah, Tesla Jess.
So I think it depends on what the political landscape is on as far as the percentages. We got away from nuclear because of the fear that was instilled in a lot of people about the dangers and stuff, which is not exactly realistic. If that can be appeased in the minds of the general population, I mean, it should be closer to 80%. Really, the only downside is the concentration in area and its vulnerabilities to sabotage.
Thank you. Your sound quality is really bad. There's a lot of background noise there. Okay, so Tesla just says nuclear can be 80%, but it really depends on political climate. David Sachs on the last All In podcast was adamant that nuclear is not going to take off in US. They had a bit of a back and forth. Highly recommend listening to that segment. I thought that was really informative. They also pointed out that the announcements, the headlines about big tech investing in nuclear are kind of non-binding. They're just headlines right now. There's not much substance to it. Important to point out. So Muff pointed that out. Okay. Brandon says it's about the cost and ease of install in YouTube live chat. He says solar wins even with Trump tariffs. Interesting. Angela coming up. Great. Let's bring Saving Private real quick. Let's see what he has to say. Okay, Saving Private Progressive, you may go ahead. Saving Private Progressive, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hey there. Well, look, I'm a former nuclear reactor operator. I've built wind turbines and power plants. I'm in the energy industry. We're in a little bit of an energy trap, right? You're going to need a heavy base load of fossil fuels offset by some nuclear to keep our civilization going. Wind, solar will have a role to play, but they will never be able to provide the scale we need in the time horizon that we have. The thing that we ought to be thinking about is making a beeline for fusion in the next 30 or 40 years. That would be, I think, the way out of this carbon trap that we find ourselves in right now. But short of that, having built wind turbines everywhere, I can tell you that there's just not enough there to sustain us. Solar, unless you really scale up that and make it more economical, probably won't get us there. And we're a little bit stuck for now. But fusion, if we can make a beeline for it, could be like the discovery of fire.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, do you agree that solar cannot get the world there? Because that is direct opposition of what Elon is saying.
There's a big drawback at scaling the production of those solar panels, and it creates a lot of pollution right now, and it's mostly manufactured in China. And then on the lifetime of the panel, you win back the pollution you did by building it. But then if you scale up this huge industrial complex that builds solar panels, but then you have all of the panels you need, then you're stuck with all this production capacity, or like maybe like there are, it's a great tool to put in on your tool bet, but you cannot bet the whole civilization on solar like Elon talks. It's better to diversify your portfolio in energy production.
Interesting. It's very rare that any of our speakers, permanent speakers, really regular speakers, disagree with Elon to this extent. And so maybe we can dig into this tomorrow in Tesla Live a little bit more. Uzi seems to agree with Michelle on this. I saw a thumbs up. Uzi, do you agree with Michelle? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's different lenses we could take with it. I mean, obviously there's the Elon one we just brought up, but another one is more of a geopolitical lens. Obviously, our country has not been in war on our home turf, which has been fantastic for my lifetime, your lifetime. But in terms of energy production, that is a question of national security and having a diversity of those. I guess. Well, I want to also pose, energy on the aggregate demand and supply curve. That's the aggregate demand curve. So, having a robust energy system is great for national security. In terms of how that results, it's not entirely clear what the future of gasoline might be, but I still think it'll be there by 2030, maybe 2035.
I don't know how you got the gasoline. We were talking natural gas. nuclear, and solar. So, Uzi, what percent of new electricity generation capacity will be solar in the next 10 years, you think?
Honestly, I'm hesitant to give a percentage. I understand it's around like 20 or 30% now. I think that will continue to increase. So maybe
No, again, see, maybe I'm not asking this question right or something, but we're talking about from now in the next 10 years, what percent of new electricity generation? So the starting point is actually irrelevant to the question. Let's go to Angela. Angela is actually very experienced about these things. Angela, go ahead.
No, thank you. I just want to say, I think that we're going to have to look at solar in the future as kind of like a quantum computing. Right now, we've got an explosive means of energy going into solar. So, what that means is we've got it's faster and we've got smaller cells going on right now. So it's going to be more explosive than what we've seen. We've struggled with solar for many years. Our time is going to be like quantum right now, in my opinion.
Trent?
Not just a trend, but it's a
No, sorry,
create.
I was calling on
Oh,
Tran.
I'm sorry.
Hi, I just want to start saving Private Ryan a question. Is that okay?
Okay.
I know that Lockheed Martin is doing nuclear thermal propulsion on their rockets. What do you feel about that? Can we use that on Earth as well as in space?
I don't think so. I think nuclear thermal propulsion. First of all, I'm not familiar with the technology, but the way we make power on Earth with nuclear power is we take the reaction and then we convert the reactions into heat, which then are used to typically make steam, right? To turn steam turbines, which turn generators, which makes the power. The propulsion probably wouldn't lend itself very much to that.
Thank you.
Okay. We have Matt Senko, a YouTube channel member, a longtime listener, who says, quote, fusion doesn't scale, end quote, Elon Musk. Okay. Matt Senko also says about the excess solar production capacity that someone mentioned earlier, that we will use it in space. Okay. Michelle?
I have a comment about fusion because this copper it was compared with Bitcoin when Bitcoin was below $1, and they said like oh, fusion would not scale the same way Bitcoin would not scale, and Bitcoin are tens of thousands of dollars a piece now. Because it became some sort of like de facto value, it grew. Was it flat for a long time? Yeah, and on the like relevant scale, fusion has been 5 years away for 50 years. It's always around the corner and still not here yet. There were positive energy outputs achieved in greater and greater scales labs in the last few years. So that's a positive outcome where they were able at a lab scale and then larger lab scale to have fusion energy produce more energy than it costs to create the reaction. So like an actual positive impact. But then to make a big reactor is a challenge all of itself. But maybe as difficult as like catching a building-sized rocket with chopsticks was thought to be impossible. There are very smart people working on this, and I believe we can have energy abundance if that is achieved.
Yeah, but that's a big if, right? That's a big if.
Exactly.
Michelle, so solar plus storage is already a few cents per kilowatt hour right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. and Fusion is still at kind of venture capital. It's still not even proven to work.
Yeah, well, that's the recently it was proven to produce more energy than was required to run the thing. So like that was not achieved until very recently.
At like a lab scale though, like it's not proven that it can be scaled up to mass production profitably, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's some kind of scale that would power a zip code, not a city.
Okay, let's dig into this a little bit more in tomorrow's Tesla Live. We also have the wireless charging topic tomorrow as well. So yeah, but I'm all surprised that a couple of people on the speaker board, namely Michelle and Uzi, are completely going against what Elon Musk says. Uzi, especially, this is the first time I think I've ever seen him go against Elon. Okay. Which I welcome, but you kind of, it's a tough position to defend, Uzi. So you better bring your facts tomorrow.
I'm feeling a little sick.
Okay. All right. Let's see. What else do we need to cover here? Well, I was not expecting that kind of discussion from Big Tech Goes Nuclear. Interesting. All right. We talked about XAI API. We talked about Big Tech Goes Nuclear. We talked about Microsoft releasing autonomous agents. Michelle, I saw the topic ChatGPT now has Canvas on mobile app, but I don't know if that's a material topic. But do you have a couple of things to say? And I see your hand up.
I mean, there's always these little experiments that OpenAI run, and I kind of reported it kind of too early because then the rollout stopped, and even some people that had it lost it. So that's not material right now. There are these like people people very early reporting, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that, but it was some sort of A/B testing, and then it stopped, and it's not wide release yet, so it's too early to talk about. But on a general note, some other behavior I've noted this week and was reading about people reporting about was that it would trigger O1, the like thinking step by step deeper thinking model, even if they were having a regular 4.0 conversation. So the same way, if you're having a conversation with ChatGPT and it's relevant for it to create an image, or you kind of leaned into asking it to do a web search, it triggers that functionalities automatically. And I posted that as a bunch of comments this week that it would make sense if it was able to, if you were able to talk to ChatGPT without having to go and select a model and be aware of those like intricate differences between the models. You just talk with an AI and it would use the right tool or agents or feature to serve you the best
Okay.
result.
Now that you're on the topic, let me just ask you, when I'm talking with ChatGPT, sometimes it gives me two answers and says you're grading or you're providing feedback on a new model. There usually isn't much difference. I actually have to kind of look through both to see what the differences are. But is this kind of 4.0 versus O1, or is it more ChatGPT 4 versus ChatGPT 5?
Maybe not something as big as a jump from 4 to 5, but there were like several iteration of ChatGPT 4 for point 0.1 turbo and then 4.0, and it's all like incremental model change, and they want to test the waters before making a wide release of such a model.
Okay, interesting.
Something else that started rolling out was asking you permission to remember something with a yes or no button. But that was not rolled out wide as well. So one of the A or B thing I had to choose from
was one that remembered something and one that did not, and the two outputs were fairly similar. I mean, the same way, like a few words were different, but it was like basically synonyms. So the output was essentially the same, and I think it was more or less asking me, did you want the model to remember this particular memory or not in that instance, type of thing.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Anything on Notebook LLM?
Yeah, this extremely cool feature that I still use and listen to about 3 to 5 hours per week of Notebook LLM created podcasts. It's a tool by Google where you give it up to 5 sources of data, text, articles, PDFs, and you click the what they call audio overview button. And before this week, it was just a button, and it would take all of your data and create what they call themselves deep dive podcasts with two guests talking to each other in a very natural voice about the data you gave it. Now you can you have a little opportunity to give a box of text, some sort of prompt to the audio overview podcasts. So, like for example, there were newly published X.com platform terms of service, and I wanted to know more about these terms of service because a particular aspect of them is that starting November 25, they're gonna be using anything you post and or do on X to train AI. And I was like, oh, can you tell me more about that? And it generated a short 4 or 5 minute NotebookLM deep dive audio podcast that I listened to, and it was going into specifically not all of the terms and services, but like any parts of the terms and services that were about training AI with what you post and do on X. It was super easy to listen to, and it's just like that's the kind of use case I use Notebook LM for. It's nice to have this ability to prompt it to do the podcast, if you call it, about a specific aspect of your data.
Okay. Uzi, do you use Notebook LM?
No, not recently, but I used it first when it came out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people use it at first. It obviously was a viral on TikTok, and then I'm not sure what happened after that. Kind of fizzled out a little bit. Michelle.
Well, for somebody that listens to a lot of them, because it's like I love this tool too much. After the like 10th or 21th, you feel like it's more of the same, and you have to be interested about the subject matter because it's really like an overdone format. I think this prompting is going to bring a little bit of a refreshing angle because otherwise I would like feed it AI research papers and that kind of similar subject stuff, terms and conditions, or like contracts. And it was a little bit redundant and doing the same party tricks over and over. This
Yeah.
prompting thing is going to be interesting.
I'm looking at Notebook LM search interest in US over the last 90 days. Went viral in September, peaked at the end of September, and then since then it's been on a downward, basically a decline, and now about 40% of the peak. So giving up more than half, majority of the search interest in October. Uzi?
Yeah, well, personally, I'd have to go out of my way to find something to bring into it. Unlike Michelle, who's reading, lengthy AI research papers. And for the most part, all I'm reading are posts on X and then books. And I don't want the book to be explained to me. I want to understand for myself. So there's no natural use case for me at this point.
Very interesting. I'm always curious about what makes these viral trends stick versus fizzle out. Uzi, are you an Nvidia investor?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a coffee bet.
What was the coffee bet?
I think the coffee bet was by, I think this year end will Nvidia be at
No,
the
no, no, no. That's not true. I'm gonna go. I'm really careful about these coffee bets. Okay, the wording of them. I believe it was about in a year it's gonna be higher or lower than where it is, and we did that like last week. I remember now. Okay, good. Good try to you slip one in there. What do you make of today's all-time highs in the recent days? I mean, it has been setting all-time highs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be because Jensen's giving a keynote 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. You know, it might be
Oh,
buying into the
okay.
hype.
9 a.m. Eastern. So we do a live space for that. I'll think about it. Robert,
The market is figuring out that Nvidia is sold out for a couple of years now, and I think that's what's being reflected in the stock price.
you think Blackwell is sold out for the next 2 years?
I bet they are. Yeah, from what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Uzi seems to agree. Uzi, you're not buying more, but you're not also selling either. You're just holding.
When we were, I think, making that bet, I don't know if it was around. No, it was at 130. I remember Yoda. He was saying I'm buying more within this space right now. Was it Tesla Live? I was buying at that point when it got down to 100. So now I just hold. I kind of like I'm attracted to dips, which is kind of psychological problem.
So when are you gonna sell?
I'll sell. I don't know. Like, when am I going to sell Tesla? I don't know.
Okay, Robert.
That's the other part of Nvidia. They came out with a new model last week, and it got praise from around the AI industry. And they have a lot of new products that they could announce, ship around AI, and they have a huge advantage. They can actually get Nvidia cards.
Michelle, can you give us an overview of what Robert just said? NVIDIA came out with their own LLM, and it was pretty good, as I understand it, but I don't quite know the details of it. Can you give us an overview?
When I wish we had Omar, but I'll try. It's like NVIDIA has this CUDA coding interface that you can use to interact and use their cards. But on top of this, people build their own large language models. They challenge themselves internally at building such a model. And of course, it's immediately way more optimized because it's the engineers that worked on the CUDA language that builds this layer on top of it. So it obviously interacts with the cards more efficiently, power wise, and the end result is comparable to GPT-3 in terms like if you would put it in the Hugging Face contest leaderboard type of thing. It's a pretty decent model, and I
Okay,
think they
so
open
you
sourced
said
it. It's open source, so
the
that's cool.
NVIDIA model is as good as GPT-3, but that's obviously not even close to GPT-4, right?
Well, definitely somewhere in between the two, but not close to
Yeah.
the value of 4
I mean, I
or the
feel like with
competitors.
with chatbots, it's like if you're not the top, you're kind of a distant second.
It's still kind of useful if I
I mean,
need a chatbot
ever
to.
since I started paying for ChatGPT 4.0 and O1 preview, I haven't used. I canceled Gemini, didn't miss it a single time, and I haven't used Grok either. I know, Uzi. I know this breaks your heart. Please don't cry yourself to bed tonight. Um,
But
but
like
that's the
at
reality. I'm just
scale,
being
if you're
honest.
trying to transcribe the calls of 500 agents and like you don't need GPT 4.0 API prices to do that, you can use a way cheaper model that runs on your own hardware. So instead of like
having money fly away from your account on the API bill. You buy a bunch of cards and you run your own model, and it's on your metal, and you're just paying the electricity bill and your IT department to run it.
So you're saying Nvidia doesn't need OpenAI. Nvidia can run its own LLMs, but a third party isn't going to prefer Nvidia's LLM versus OpenAI's LLM. Fair?
Maybe if they particularly hate OpenAI and Microsoft and Google, like they bought Nvidia cards and they've used the open source models, but they're already in a customer relationship with Nvidia, so they might use their LLM if they at least trusted Nvidia
I don't
for the
know.
hardware.
This sounds very much like I hate Elon, therefore I'm not going to buy Tesla. I'm going to buy a secondary Bolt EV kind of situation.
Oh
It's not
well, yeah, you
sustainable in
can
the longer term.
classify Nvidia LLM as the Rivian of models, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, AI Amateurs just got its first super chat in its history in the 12th episode. Thank you, Nobark Chip, for $1 super chat. First, we just popped our super chat cherry on AI Amateurs. Congratulations, everybody. In return, Angela is going to sing you a song. Angela?
Wow, I'm gonna sing a song. Okay. Golden Road, take me home to a place I've never known. In a Cybertruck with the
Perfect. I
glass
think
roof.
that was enough for $1. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. You're nasty.
All right. Sean, go ahead.
I just wanted to add with the Nvidia AI cards. Those are a very valuable resource for things moving forward into the future. And I think that Nvidia has a lot to offer. They've been prominent in the industry for a long time and have definitely broke off and tried a lot of different new things. So they are definitely not one to be underestimated, in my opinion, especially with the current working relationships they have.
I'm sorry, I can't trust anybody who says Nvidia. I mean, Jensen himself says Nvidia. Why do people insist on Nvidia? Yeah, it's like saying Tesla. Elon says Tesla. It's Tesla, and it's sexier.
It is Tesla.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. I think we covered everything we want to cover today. An hour and 40 minutes is way past my bedtime. Shall we continue tomorrow in Tesla
No,
Live?
I think you owe us a song.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm gonna try though.
I don't want to
more
listen.
than $1. Yeah. In the interest of your eardrums, I will wish you. Michelle, go ahead.
I pasted below my own comment an extremely interesting research paper. So if you're a nerd like me, they achieved model quantization, which is instead of like buying all of these expensive NVIDIA cards to run an LLM, it's just going to approximate if the value of the weight is going to be -1, 0, or 1. And then it gives you an approximation of the answer that this huge model would typically give you if you pay or use lots of these GPUs, but it runs on a regular computer. It's a kind of an amazing hack where if you take an extremely powerful model and you ask it to give an approximation of an answer, you still get something valuable that runs locally on like a $500, $1,000 computer that anybody here have, like a laptop level type of computer can output a paragraph in a minute.
Okay.
With instead of like using NVIDIA cards, it's quite amazing hack and something I'm going to be looking into.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michelle. And thank you very much, everybody. And I'll chat tomorrow in Tesla Live. Have a good night.